Hey, MLSListings subscribers. Thanks for tuning in to another Vendor Spotlight. I'm here today with a familiar face, Leila Banijamali, CEO and co-founder of Symbium. And we're thrilled today to have our guest here today, Carrie Diller. She's the co-founder and lead architect of Inspired ADUs. Can you guess what we're going to be talking about today?
ADUs. Yeah.
Thanks so much for both of you for coming here.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
And Leila is kind of going to be my co-host today.
Yeah,
you know?
happy to be here. It's kind of like The View, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that view. So I'll pretty much just kind of sit here and let you guys talk, I think. So I guess we should intro, first off, kind of, I think most people I know Symbium and know what you do, the feasibility of ADUs. But Carrie, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what you guys do, kind of as a core?
Absolutely. So, I started the architecture firm 21 years ago, and we did a little bit of everything. But in 2010, we started looking at, we were, I guess, a little younger then, and like, how do you afford the Bay Area? How do you afford the cost of living? And so we started to look at, what are some housing models? And it kind of led us to the idea that to afford the Bay Area, we probably need like a parent to live nearby to help with imaginary future children, and that led to the idea of multi-generational housing. And then we just started to look at the models for that. And we also tried to talk to seniors about, like, what are your plans? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to go? And no one wanted to talk about it. So we took a minute and looked at the architecture that was out there for senior living, and it was awful. Like, so it was no wonder people didn't want to talk about it. So that got us pretty fired up about, how do we address multi-generational living? How do we maximize a property? How do we add additional units? And when you're adding a new unit, it has an opportunity to be usable for anybody, right? Like, so many of our houses today have stairs up, limitations, things that not everyone can use. So the ADU, we started to slow. I think our first one was in 2010, and the laws through the years have been very restrictive, but we were ready for all the changes.
It's interesting. I mean, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, have been a very hot topic in California for so long. And in fact, one of the things that I really love about ADUs is it's actually a very easy way, an accessible way for agents to provide a lot of value to their clients.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of like nowadays, especially, really important to level up on something. And this is something that's totally within reach. If you take a few minutes, listen to episodes like this to kind of like really connect with professionals like Carrie on the topic of ADUs. California has been a leader in the ADU space, I think. 1982s, from what I remember, reading this stuff, is California was the first state to pass legislation that bans local jurisdictions from outlawing ADUs.
Right.
And then from there, it's just become more and more, open to making sure that people have, as of right, a right to build ADUs, and also to accelerate the path to ADUs.
Right.
So can we talk a little bit about the legislation, like what's happening in the regulatory landscape for ADUs, that sort of stuff that agents can remember to kind of like drop on clients from time to time?
Right. I mean, I think it's great that you brought up 1982. That's when the first ADU came about. It wasn't the marketing genius behind the phrase ADU hadn't come across us yet. So they were just called secondary units. And what the state did is acknowledge, we're going to have a housing crisis. We have to do something. So they said, let's let people add these secondary units. And then they thought, well, okay, all the cities will kind of be excited about this and take it on, and they did not. And so through the years, we've had major new laws that have just kind of started to strip away the local municipalities' rights because they just weren't getting on board and adding new housing. So 2018 was a very pivotal year. 2021 was, took it to the next level. Through those laws, we saw that everyone in California has the right to a 800 square foot ADU, 4 feet from the setbacks, 16 feet tall. Now that law has evolved where cities can make it less restrictive than that. You can go 2 stories in some areas, much larger square footage. Sometimes you can have 2 ADUs. So those laws have changed dramatically since 2018. What's new this year, which is pretty exciting, went into effect January 1, is that AB 1033 is the first one. That allows cities to opt into the condo. I don't know if they're calling it the Condo Act, or you can condoize your ADU.
Wow, look at that. That's incredible.
It's big. What's happened is, I honestly am surprised that this passed this year. Oregon and Washington, I think, both have it in place. I thought it would take a little longer in California. What the legislators did is they put it in place that cities have to opt into this. So right now, Berkeley is opted in, San Jose is opted in, rumor has it LA and San Diego are not far behind, but my prediction, my globe,
Crystal ball.
my crystal ball for the next couple of years is that eventually the state's just going to say everyone has the right to do the condos.
Let me get this right. So if I'm a homeowner in Berkeley and I have an ADU, I can actually turn it into a condo and then sell that as a separate
That's
unit.
right. Yeah.
And so what happens to, is there like condo association dues? Like how does it get managed?
It's really interesting. I mean, the law went into effect January 1. We have not, what's happening with the ADU laws is they have kind of ambiguous language. They get voted in, and then it takes 4 to 6 months to kind of sort it out. As Berkeley, I think, was the first one to opt in. We don't know all the details yet. Like, are you going to have, are you going to draw a condo map and then you don't really need an HOA system but maybe you're going to maintain shared meters, shared utilities. And so
there has to be some relationship between the homeowner and that now owner of the ADU, right?
That's right. So that's all I did. I did notice that as soon as Berkeley enacted the law, I saw a listing on MLS that showed an ADU in Berkeley being sold. And I tried to look it up and find it before our talk today, but
it was sold before you could look it up.
It was sold out from under me, so it was already gone.
Right. But it makes sense because, obviously we've had a housing crisis in California. We've had it for a while in inventory. And, if you want to really get, try to solve it. And our mayor, there's a difference between tiny homes, right, and ADUs, right?
That's right.
And so I know there was a big kind of what's that word?
Kerfuffle.
Yes, regarding that because, what's the best solution? ADUs, tiny homes, but there's such a difference. But, in terms of affordability, right? ADUs, the youngsters here today, really can't afford any homes.
Right.
And I guess my question to you would be, is it the new? Are you seeing it kind of? Do you believe that ADUs are kind of the new starter homes?
I think so. I mean, we had a case study like 5 years ago. We did an ADU in Oakland, multi-generational situation. The son couldn't get into the housing market, right? He was a working professional, couldn't get into the housing market, didn't want to leave. Parents didn't want him to leave. They had a ton of equity in their house. So for that family, we built the ADU in the back, used the home equity line, and then the adult son lived in it and paid back the payment on the home equity line, which was a lot lower than he was paying in rent. Mm-hmm. But what it didn't do is it didn't build any long-term wealth for him. It didn't get him into the housing market, didn't get him, over that hurdle. So imagine, fast forward to today, he could buy that from his parents as a condo.
Right.
Then he could start building his own equity and wealth using that as a piece of property. The people who own the main home get to stay in their neighborhood, stay in their house, but then they get a cash influx, right? So there's so many people in the Bay Area who don't want to live their neighborhoods. They have all their history, they have their neighbors, their doctors, their everything, right? But they're probably, I always get the phrase wrong, is it cash rich, house rich, cash poor.
Yeah.
Cash poor, yeah, right. So this new condo piece could be amazing for people because they can just sell off this piece, or what we see a lot of people doing is they're moving forward with the ADU. But if something comes up, a life event, some people want to split their time and travel. So maybe they want to move to the ADU, be there part-time. Right now they can keep the main house as income, but should something happen or should they not want to maintain it anymore, they can condoize it and sell it off.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We know one of the things that we were talking about earlier is that when homeowners are, getting sort of older and they have these houses that they've been living in for a long, long time, they have so much equity built up, but no one can move right now because
capital gains.
Exactly, right?
And where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go? The interest rates are so high, right?
It's impossible. And so, you have a lot of people
slice off a piece of your own property and then sell that.
We actually had an interview with the CAR president at the time, and he said exactly that, right? And so you have so many people who, a lot of times they might have the money, to buy a house, but not the down payment, right? And we actually did a whole government affairs, series on kind of the legislation. It is an election year, and you kind of start to see how important it is to keep up with that kind of stuff. AB 1033, where you can actually sell, and it kind of brings it back to agents understanding that too,
right?
Because these are things where, in terms of providing value, Obviously an ADU is going to provide, value to the home. It's going to, obviously in terms of, monetarily. I guess my question to you would be, are you seeing people who decide to build ADUs? Are they building it because, hey, it's a great business for me to add that to get, or is it because family-wise I need to have something for my grandmother
Right.
or my son?
I mean, I think because we started, our intention initially was about multi-generational living and about designing these units. And don't tell anybody, but I'm going to say aging. Everybody freaks out, but really the opposite of aging is much
It's
worse.
the reality.
Yeah,
Right. If you're not aging, you're gone. So we started off like really focused on that. So I think initially, at least the majority of our clients were looking at it as a multi-generational living situation. The truth is they are expensive. The land is paid for, the utilities are often there, sometimes those need upgrades, but the ADUs themselves are not inexpensive. So does the rental math work out for everybody? Not as much as you would think. I think that's why especially we see more people doing them for family, because it makes sense, because you're pooling resources. There's kind of some nifty stuff in that, like my mom lives in an ADU in our yard. She paid for part of the build. That becomes a gift to my husband and I because it's an asset for our property, but we're not paying any inheritance tax on that because she invested in our property for us. So there's kind of some neat ways to share that. I think long term, the ADU as an investment model is going to definitely be something, and we don't talk about this a lot, but ADUs can also go on multifamily properties.
Right. You can actually have up to two, right?
Well, it's interesting. So if you have a 4-unit multifamily and the lower level is all carports, if there's 4 units, you can add 1 ADU in the underutilized space. So you could convert a carport to an ADU. And then you can also add 2 detached ADUs in the backyard if you have room for it, up to usually 1,000 each. And Senator Skinner has a law on the books that's going forward next year that's going to increase the density of ADUs on multifamily homes. So
Interesting.
I think we're going to see
More and
that
more of this.
more and more because, there's so many buildings that are underutilized.
Right.
Makes sense.
That are not, people aren't going back to the office. So what do we do with all this space?
Right, and I would say I took a look. I'm sure we're going to show some of your work, which these cottages are absolutely beautiful that you designed, the architecture. Because what's the one limited thing about an ADU? It's space, right?
Right.
It is limited space, but I think your architecture kind of does around kind of that because it's so well done.
No, it does respond
And
well.
they're beautiful, and so you get these absolutely. Maybe there's a bit of a stigma, to an ADU. Same way as I just saw a mobile home somebody had bought, and I couldn't believe it was a beautiful mobile home. But in my mind, mobile home is attached to maybe you know what I'm saying, not the greatest.
A bad connotation.
When in reality, I was like, wow, that's actually really nice. And same with the ADUs. Now, what I was impressed with your company, Inspired ADUs, not only the architecture, but you guys are really involved in doing an eco-friendly, right, environmental friendly at the most affordable cost you can.
Right.
That's. I'll let you speak to that maybe a little bit, but
About the price, the costs. What are ADUs costs, and how do people think about that?
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to kind of your perspective on it.
It's a complicated question. It's like, can you get me a car? Like I could buy you a Lamborghini or a used Yugo and I still got you a car. So there's so many decisions that go into the ADU. So we're seeing in like the Silicon Valley, Bay Area, like between $500 a square foot and up for an ADU. There's some ADU math that's atypical, is that the smaller the cottage, the higher the cost per square foot. You're basically taking everything from a whole house and putting it in a small footprint. As the ADU gets larger, then you can get a better price per square foot, but again, your overall price tag is going up. The numbers in LA are considerably lower than the Bay Area, I guess because of labor costs. I haven't completely cracked the code on that. We are trying to do some more, explore building models to be more sustainable, like building walls off-site. We have a new panelized kit that's with our partners at Prefab ADU, which is turning out.
We love Prefab ADU.
Yeah, we love Prefab ADU. It's Steve and the team. So basically, we're building the walls in segments, pre-wiring, pre-plumbing them, putting them flat pack on a truck and driving them to a backyard.
Yeah.
We love the modular. We have a neat line called Modular Millie, which we think is a bit unique for what's out there right now. But the truth is the modular can only get into 30% of the lots, right? Because we need a wide road, you have to set up a crane, you have to lift it into the backyard, and because you're setting these like way in the backyard, you're often using a much bigger crane than the weight of the modular needs. So a couple of our sustainable pieces are trying to build in a factory, which is more controlled, less waste, you're just streamlining the process, working every day in normalized conditions. And then ADUs inherently are very sustainable, right? Because they're, instead of taking like a beautiful open space and building some mid-rise or high-rise apartment that most people are a bit resistant to, we're keeping our neighborhoods looking the same, but we're doing infill housing. So we're adding density in the back of the lot. We're working off existing fire, police, all the infrastructure that's already there. So fundamentally, that gets to be, a pretty sustainable way to add new housing.
So I want to talk about design for a moment. So,
Sure. Yeah.
Carrie, anyone that knows you and your work know that you are so thoughtful about design, and the designs of your homes and your plans are so beautiful. When I talk about beautiful designs and architecture, I'm not talking about the stuff that you see in Architectural Digest that is not practical and that no one can use, right?
Right.
That everything is perfectly in place and
Right.
the materials come from who knows where.
Right.
We're talking about stuff that is practical, within reach, but is super well designed and thoughtful. I want to talk to you about, there's so much to celebrate in new construction these days. And when it comes to design, modular, like you were talking about with our friends at Prefab ADU, new materials. There's a company that I'm really excited about, OCOM Concrete. They've kind of created concrete replacement, using mycelium, which is incredible.
Amazing.
Sort of like mushrooms that they've
Really?
basically been able to make as hard as concrete. So it's
That's
really
awesome.
extraordinary. And then on-site wastewater treatment, there's a lot of technology there. And of course, electrification.
Yes.
There's a company called Impulse Labs that is doing some great work with stovetop electrification that is powered by batteries. So
That's cool.
really high-quality batteries that are able to power all of our appliances moving forward. This is really exciting stuff. What construction design trends are you seeing when it comes to energy savings and ADUs?
Well, I mean, electrification.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get it on the
It's a tough
third
one.
time. I mean, that's a huge, most of our cottages are all electric. I mean, everybody's moving to that. We're having the conversation with clients like, do you need to update your meter? Are you going to have an electric car charger? What happens in the main house when your water heater dies in a few years and, we upgraded your service, but we don't have enough energy then for you to upgrade your main house. So we're having a lot of those conversations with clients about the long-term role of going all electric.
And it's because they're demanding it, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's very, there's a big movement. The solar is kind of a little more of a complicated equation because the cottages are smaller. It doesn't, the life cycle cost and the infrastructure cost of a solar system on such a small roof is not always working out for the clients in terms of a smart investment at the time. A lot of our clients will go all electric, again, really working through like the water heater in the main house is a huge thing. Like when those go, you need to replace it with all electric.
Right.
With a heat pump
true,
system.
yeah.
And if you don't have the amperage
Right.
to run it, then you're going back to PG&E, which is not an enjoyable process, and having to start over. So we're really trying to and advise clients to do an audit in general of their main house and the loads that the ADU is going to come. But yeah, no one wants to deal with gas. They don't want to run it.
There's a company, that I'm so excited about called Goal Zero, and Yeti does some work with them in terms of like designing batteries and solar panels and that sort of thing. And they literally, we have a cottage down the coast, and you can basically like roll out a panel, the size of a suitcase, charge up your batteries, and you can stack them like Legos depending on how much you need.
So
and
fun.
then you can basically unplug it, and if there's like a storm or something like that, and the power is out, you just plug it in this battery. It takes over all of your home for a few days at least.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty extraordinary. And these are the technology for batteries, as we know now with looking at companies like Tesla, it's really coming down in price. And the technology, it's like as the innovation trend goes upward, the cost likewise comes downward.
Right.
So you're seeing that too then in construction.
Absolutely. And you see it now with, like, to your question earlier, like the building materials and like choosing to go green with your materials, like choosing like smarter tiles and flooring and all of that has all come down, and it's now more of a choice and not an extra payment. So I think all of those trends, and I think where the technology is going to go is what's going to start to be very interesting because, right now we have clients who do have to spend a lot of time to upgrade their meters and their service, and maybe in the future we're going to get to a place where battery storage and, other advances are going to kind of shift our current model, which isn't super efficient.
Yeah, no, I think that's true.
Right.
We had talked about that, Symbium started with ADU feasibility.
Right.
And then now we've transitioned out of that into instant permitting. And specifically, the biggest sort of demands we're getting for permitting is for electrification projects. So things like solar, energy storage, EV charging, heat pumps, all those kinds of things.
That makes sense. I mean, not only do a lot of people that just care about that kind of stuff, right? Obviously, California, we're big into that. So I can see, home, owners wanting to do that. But not only that is the state has mandated, right? That electrification. I mean, that's where it's going. And so there's really, whether you choose to do it now or in a year, you're going to have to do it, right? Something breaks down, you're going to have to go to that newer energy efficient model.
That's right.
And that's just, that's just the way it's going to be.
Right.
So,
and your infrastructure may not support it. So that's the thing to keep in mind is, you have these old, we'll go see a lot of people have these really old electrical panels. And I think as agents go out in the field and they're looking at properties, there's kind of some key things they can look for in terms of utilities to help, educate their clients on that front too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, to circle back to today's agent. I mean, today's agent, it is, we're in a challenging time for agents, and the relationship has changed really. And now, if you're a buyer's agent out there, you really have to be able to articulate value to differentiate yourself. I think ADUs are such a great way. I mean, you've already mentioned so many different things, but the whole electrification, I think, is also just the fact of that area there. But you got to understand it really, right? You got to be knowledgeable in it to put these kind of things in your presentations, and that's why it's great to have Leila and you both on here today, experts in the field. I'm not an expert by any means.
Well, Dave, one of the things that I used to do when I was an attorney, and I did some real estate work as well, what was that we would put into, presentations for clients or, proposals or whatever, information about third parties that had, that were sort of the experts. And because it's something that agents don't want to do oftentimes, and rightfully so, is to be the expert and provide advice that they may be wrong on because they want to take the liability.
They don't want the liability.
So the best thing to do is put inside your packages or your disclosures links to companies like Carrie's, Inspired ADUs, where there's already resources available coming directly from a licensed architect, or links to Symbium, where all of our information is coming directly from the city planning and building offices.
And we should notice, let's say you're an agent out there and you like what you're hearing about ADUs and you want to know more. They can actually, you guys have a tour coming up, right?
Yeah, we have a couple fun events coming up. On August 10th, we're doing a tour on the peninsula. So right now it's taking shape. I think we have about 15 ADUs that you're going to be able to go and tour. So there's tickets available for that. At the end of the day, there'll be an ADU fair where we can come and talk to vendors. We're going to have a panel kit demonstration where they're going to assemble one of the panel kits on site. So there'll be some really interesting things. We're doing that with Redwood City, and they've been really supportive about it. And then I do teach a class for realtors called All About ADU. Now, this is a program that came out of Earth Advantage, which they created a designation called an ADU specialist. So if you listen to me talk for 4 hours, you can take the exam and get qualified. But it is a great...
What do people get if they listen to us talk for 4 hours?
A headache?
A bag of peanuts? A Starbucks gift card?
But this program, I wanted to teach it ahead of the ADU tour. That way if agents wanted to
That's awesome.
have a little more knowledge or take a couple of their potential clients around to that, then they could do it. So on August 1st, I'm going to teach the All About ADU class, and that is focused on realtors, appraisers, and we go through a little bit of everything about understanding site, the laws, like the different types of ADUs, the challenges with appraising, financing, and so it's a great overview, and if you choose to do the test at the end, you can become an ADU specialist. I don't think that designation has caught on as much as it has in Oregon and Washington, but I think we'll see it get more momentum. So that's
So
coming up.
August 10th, and then is the event, this in-person event about for ADUs, the tour and also the expo? Is it what do you call it? It's the
Yeah, the ADU fair.
the ADU fair.
Yeah.
Okay, is it all taking place in Redwood City?
So their ADUs are going to range from, I think, like Burlingame. We might have a couple in Pacifica. We're trying to set them up in clusters because of the size of the Bay Area. You probably wouldn't get in all 12 or 15. But I think our furthest one south is going to San Jose. So they're going to be clustered. We have several in Redwood City. We've got San Mateo County. We've got, they're kind of popping up all over the
Amazing.
place. And so what we try to do, we did a tour last fall in the East Bay, which worked out great and got great response. It's like, I think to your question earlier, Dave, people are like, I can't really live in an ADU, and they're not tiny homes. I mean, my mom lives in an 800 square foot ADU with 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, huge deck. It's like, you could really be smart about how you design them and they can live well, but I think most people can't imagine it. So the tour is great. It focuses on a lot of different architects, builders, designers, not just our company, but it's really about sharing knowledge. It's about abundance. I mean, the truth is, all the companies out there could build as many ADUs as possible and we'd all still be doing fine. So this is one of our, that's something we really believe in, is just educating and sharing the love about ADUs and just helping people make the right decision. And so I think going through and seeing, 5 or 6 or 15 if you can do it, really helps people get inspired. It helps agents understand like how much fits in a lot. We have some that are going to be on big lots. We have some that are tiny, and like one that's a great little junior ADU, which is a carve out within an existing house. So it just helps you start to understand the possibility.
Yeah, with especially with that AB 1033, that now that people can sell their ADUs separate from the main house, for a young homeowner, that maybe that's a solution for them, right?
That's right.
And for the agent, might want to propose that.
Yeah.
But the first thing is showing, I think, seeing it, because once you see it, and of course we're going to show on this video some of your work,
Thank you.
and I think when you see these cottages, you're just blown away. I was. That they're beautiful, right? And for a lot of people, I think nowadays that's kind of what they're looking for as well.
Right.
There's millennials, I guess whatever the young generation's called.
Yeah.
Are they millennials now or Gen whatever? But a lot of them are looking to kind of minimalist kind of,
Right.
and they're not looking for 3,000 square
That's
foot with a
right.
gigantic mortgage,
Right.
right? And so this might be for a first-time homeowner a solution perfect for them. And we already mentioned family and all the other things, as well as adding value to the property. So, I think in listing presentations and things for our agents to really differentiate themselves, there's a huge opportunity if you just take the time to kind of understand it.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit more about what else is happening regulatory wise.
I mean, I think the thing the real estate is going to be so excited about is the amnesty program for unpermitted ADUs. This legislation is on the books for next year. We do feasibility studies for realtors, like putting something on the market. They want to put a little packet together, know what's possible. And like the number one question we get from realtors is, what do I do? I've got a listing coming on. I've got an unpermitted ADU. What can we do? And the trick is right now, amnesty is going to be a little tricky to figure out, because a lot of times these ADUs were done at some point a long time ago. They were built to different code cycles. If you try to go in and permit it now, you have to permit it to 2024 standards, which are going to make people keep them illegal, which means that we may have housing that's not safe and that's not good and is hard to rent and hard to insure, and is more of a burden to a property than an asset. But if we can get this ADU law going, where we can find a middle ground where you can find a path that's not ridiculous to permit your illegal ADU, then this is going to become a great value when you're putting it on the property. It could be something that can be done before you sell it, potentially. And then again, you can circle back to the condos and be like, you can permit the illegal ADU, and then all of a sudden you can condoize it, and then you have 2 properties to sell instead of 1. So I think the amnesty is going to be really impactful, because I think there's a lot more illegal ADUs than probably as an architect I know about. The realtors may know about them better, be more dialed into that, but it's
Gotcha.
going to be a big impact.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess kind of as we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you in terms of your opinion,
Yeah.
someone who's building ADUs, and as an architect, what do you see the future? We kind of talked about electrification. That's such a tough word.
I know, right? I couldn't do it either. All
Just
electric.
call it the
I
E
say
word,
all
but
electric.
yeah, electrification. What do you see the future as in terms of when we talk about ADUs?
Well, through the years, the barriers have been brought down. Things are getting easier, but unfortunately, it's still kind of difficult. You have the right to permit the ADU, but it doesn't mean that the path to get there isn't going to be challenging. A law I forgot to mention, which is one I'm personally really excited about, is pre-approved plans. So this passed in January, and basically, as of 2025, cities all are going to have to offer pre-approved plans. Again, with the legislation, it's still a little messy. We don't know what that means, but in my grand vision, right now, we are often playing the role of mitigating a local jurisdiction's understanding of the code and what the state law says, and then often we have to get the state to write a letter to clarify the loads. So my big vision and wish for the future is that we have one ADU law
Right.
that goes for all ADUs. We have these pre-approved plans, and next thing you know, you're at Symbium fast-tracking your approval.
Instant permitting.
You're doing the instant permitting, and I think that's what's going to make it. I mean, the ADUs cost a bit of money, but the permit fees are expensive. The process, we've permitted over 200 ADUs. We've permitted the same ADU in the same municipality 6 times and got 6 rounds of comments. So there's such inefficiency to that system that I think, and it's hard to tell homeowners oh, we don't know when your permit will be issued. It makes us look like we don't know what we're doing, but there's just so much inefficiency and challenges with local jurisdictions that I think that is my dream vision, is that let's get this all dialed in, let's get it standardized, let's put it on Symbium, and you could just pick out your ADU, ask some questions, create a site plan, and then be off.
Leila, get on it.
I know.
Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah.
Stop
That
slacking
sounds
here.
amazing, right? Yeah.
So for our agents out there, we hope this has been beneficial and we kind of shine a light on ADUs and an opportunity to distinguish yourself out there, show that value. The tour, make sure August 10th, is that it?
August 10th in Redwood City is the base of the tour. It's going to be all around the peninsula. You can buy tickets for that. There's early bird pricing now. And then also we're going to do the training, ADU specialist training for professionals on August 1st.
Gotcha. And so your website, www.inspiredadus.com, right?
That's right. And if you go there, there's a Get Inspired tab, and that has all our events and things on it. So you can find those events there.
I like it. Get inspired.
Get inspired.
I've been thrilled to have you both on. Leila, I'll give you the last word if you like it. Otherwise, you got promise to come on back and hopefully we'll see it's an election year. We'll see. I'm sure a lot of stuff's going to happen from now and we'd love to have you back and talk more about what
for
what's
sure.
going
Yeah,
on.
no,
Talk
we should
about
definitely do
ADUs
this
all the
again.
time.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to, if we're talking about last word, I think the last word should be MLS listings. I mean, there's a lot of great content out there that you guys are putting out,
you.
and I think definitely cut above a lot of the other MLSs because of that. So thanks for really sort of searching for companies like Symbium and Inspired ADUs.
Appreciate you. Appreciate both of you. Yeah, keep an eye on our YouTube page as well. We always have new content. And so we'll see you all soon. And again, thanks for everybody for tuning on in. Make sure to check out our pro support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.